Zimbabwe's story is one of trial and triumph, of tears and joy, and of the enduring spirit of liberation in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. And at the center of all this striving in the face of adversity has been the story of land. For Zimbabweans, land is more than just a physical space. Access to land is about economic survival and growth. It is about food and nutrition security. Indeed, land is about poverty alleviation, better livelihoods, and dignity. It is impossible to speak of the economic, cultural, and political life of the Africans, and more so as Zimbabwean, without speaking of the land. Separating the African from his or her land is akin to severing the umbilical cord that binds us to our roots and safeguards our collective future. But this is exactly what foreign settlers tried to do for a century in Zimbabwe. From the 1880s and right into the 20th century, the British effectively deprived Zimbabweans of their birthright and livelihoods through a combination of hard and soft power that sought to drastically change the shape and contours of our social, political, and cultural identity. Driven by unfathomable greed, they created their own myth of the so-called second rand between the Limpopo and Zambezi rivers. They promptly dispatched the pioneer column soon after the likes of Moffat and Rudd had tricked King Lobengula into signing treaties and concessions that presented the pretext for occupation of our land. In a nutshell, Cecil John Rhodes, after using patently criminal means, obtained a royal charter to colonize Zimbabwe on behalf of the British government. By 1893, the invading settlers were determined to subdue every African, and so began military attacks that inspired spirited resistance at the battles of Mbembezi and Shangani rivers. However, in the face of superior hardware, the Ndebele were defeated in October 1893. But that would not be the end of the story. In March 1896, Ndebele forces reorganized, rallied, and rose once again in opposition to the vile excesses of the British South African Company. These excesses, which also affected the Shona, included forced labor, chibaro, isibalo, taxation, and looting of African resources, notably land and cattle. The Shona joined the uprising in June, giving birth to what we now call the First Chimurenga, itself the precursor of the nationalist movements of a few decades later. At the heart of mobilization in the First Chimurenga were religious and political figures, Mukwati and Kaguvi of the Shona Mondoro religious system, Mbuya Charwene Handa, who was instrumental in the uprising in the Mazowe area, and Mlugulu, Mpochkwani, Mashaya Mombe, Kunzi Nyandoro, and Makoni. Such leaders inspired the nationalists of years to come. Land segregation was the order of the day, and legislation like the Land Apportionment Act, which divided land into white areas, native purchase areas, and forest areas, being rammed through parliament without any input from the black majority. When Africans responded by way of outrightly opposing these policies or asking for recognition of their human rights, the whites responded with even yet more oppression. It was a matter of time before the true owners of the land started organizing themselves to remove the yoke of oppression.
I am prepared to make such sacrifices, and even greater sacrifices, for the freedom of the country.
drawing inspiration from mediums like Charwenyanda and applying themselves diligently to military training with the assistance of friendly countries.
It's absolutely wrong to allow a set of individuals to acquire the ownership and possession of resources which are God-given. They're not man-made. The land, the water, the forests, the animals, the fish in the river, the minerals. These are given us by nature. And it is in principle wrong for any one man to claim ownership of such resources. We should belong to the people as a whole.
Land is owned by the white minority because of their privileged position. They never bought that land. They acquired it by force of arms.
It's wishful thinking for Heath to expect Smith to reason. The only way for Smith to reason is to use violence. That is violence in the valley. And we are prepared to fight.
You stepped on a mine? Yes. And what happened to you?
Because I lost my leg. I just felt disappointed, but then after that, I knew the war was going to continue, and I knew that was going to make Zimbabwe free.
Second Chimurenga would culminate in Zimbabwe's independence in 1980. But this was largely to be forced on, in as far as correction of land tenure injustices was concerned. The Lancaster House Agreement that led to Zimbabwe's independence made it impossible to carry out any land tenure reforms for 10 years. Thereafter, gross insincerity on the part of the Western governments and outright resistance by white farmers made negotiated land reforms a pipe dream. And so, a people with a history of resistance to oppression did what they knew best. They embarked on a compulsory fast-track land reform program that today has resulted in more than 300,000 black families being settled, previously held by just 6,000 white farmers. This bold and revolutionary move triggered a harsh response from the kith and kin of the white farmers in Western governments, who promptly and unilaterally imposed illegal sanctions on Zimbabwe. This is why, until today, we still have the Zimbabwe Democracy and Economic Recovery Act, first legislated by the United States in 2001. We have all heard the claim that this law imposes targeted sanctions on a few individuals. But anyone who has read the United States sanctions law will easily see that it targets key pillars of the nation, of the economy, all with the aim of making the generality of Zimbabweans suffer and thus reject the ZANU-PF government in favor of one willing to do the bidding of the West. Since imposition of sanctions, the capacity of the state to provide social services and safety nets has declined. The balance of payment position has deteriorated. Not only that, the formal sector has shrunk as companies have downsized or even shut down permanently, leaving many people unemployed. But this would not be the story of Zimbabwe if it ended on a tale of woe. Instead of capitulating to the West, Zimbabwe has chosen to advance in spite of the sanctions.
Erasika kutonga kwaro ngoma paindorira ngoma yamakachaira rinofatsanendera ngambara makachaira.
Under the leadership of President Emmerson Mnangagwa, the Second Republic has defied the sanctions, and productivity on land reclaimed from white farmers has been on the rise.
Zimbabwe is rising step by step, brick by brick, and stone upon stone. No one can stop that movement.
Foti ekutanga pasanuke kuwakomana Nika ino wakwaneve nevayo wasikana Sepete namunanga kwachokwana Nika ino wakwaneve nevayo wakomana Foti ekutanga pasanuke kuwasikana Nika ino wakwaneve nevayo wakomana Sepete namunanga kwachokwana Majingo Zedairaka Marare Zedairaka Chakutia Zedairaka Okweka Airawe Iwajireziwe Airaka Iweshe Zedairaka Darwe Airaka Kwekwe Zedairaka Jiruziwe Mudiromko Parare kutsarushiji Kuhandidza upfumi Vechidiki wawane mabasa Utongi wechechete Kuna nyika ivakwe Inzira baba Inzira yave Inzira baba Inzira yave Dairawe Dairaga Yeroba Dairawe Yeroba Dairaga Yeroba Dairaga Dairawe Ananga Dairaga Kababa Dairaga Dairawe Lemaje Dairaga Business Dairaga Dairaga Sepete
We remain emboldened by our own philosophy, and that is Nyika Amrapedza Inovakwa Igotongwa Navenevayo
Kwanevenevayo wakomana Foti ekutanga pasanuke kuwakomana Nyika ino wakwanevenevayo wasikana Sepete namunanga kwachokwana Nyika ino wakwanevenevayo wakomana foti yekutanga pasanukivu vasikana nyika inovakwa nevene vayo vakomana tsepete tsepete vana muna